Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to accidentalmuslims.com. We are here with Moulana Bakr. I'm really excited to conduct this interview because you are part of an amazing initiative which is the Qurtuba Online Academy. Please tell us more about what this is all about.
Alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum to the viewers. Jazakallah khairan for having us here. Indeed, Qurtuba Online Academy is a project of the Adamji Group within their scope of projects, and it's a new exciting initiative which is an online initiative, and our vision is we are an online Islamic school offering international curriculum together with Islamic studies in Arabic. We aim to aspire to be leaders at all levels in terms of Islamic education, internationally and within an Islamic framework, employing the best up-to-date technology and resources to provide an affordable, Islamically spirited, professional and efficient service to sculpt future leaders.
Now, the interesting thing about the Qurtuba Online Academy is it's a fully fledged online school. Now, someone might think, how can a school be online? Elaborate on that.
Okay, so yes, it's something different. It's something, it's a change to the brick and mortar system that we have. And if we have to conceptualize that a learner goes to school for 8 hours a day, and that's become a normal system, then in an advanced digital world where we have the fourth industrial revolution at our doorstep, then it's totally normal in today's circumstances then to have an online institute where learners can tune in from wherever they are without having the difficulty of traveling, of engaging in distant journeys, and perhaps relearning or having to base their learning on others within their environment. So this is a unique opportunity where a learner is now in his own space, from the comfort of his home, able to access education at his fingertips, which is something that would excite learners, being in this audio-visual age, in this digital age, because it gives them some relativity to what's real in life and their learning situation.
You know what really excites me about the Qurtuba Online Academy is it's really changing the way education has been done since the first industrial revolution, and I think the education sector has been so slow to adapt. And if you actually look at the concept of a school, it never really existed before the first industrial revolution. And initially kids would work in the factories. And when unions sort of came about, they prohibited kids from working in factories. And so, parents had an issue because they would have to go to factory to work, and then who would look after their kids? And so the factory workers actually came up with this idea of, okay, well, let's build schools and we'll mimic them on factories. So if you look at a school, you wear school uniform. Why do you wear school uniform? Because at a factory you wear uniform. You got 2 breaks at school. Why do you get 2 breaks at school? Because a factory got 2 breaks. So you were in classrooms. It was very much, a uniform approach to learning, so that once you would graduate from school, you would then go straight into a factory. That was sort of the idea of what a school system has been. And of course, as you mentioned, the fourth industrial revolution, the world has changed so much, but the school system hasn't changed. And I think one of the biggest issues that I have with the school system is how inefficient is it. As you said, you've got to travel, you've got to spend 8 or 9 hours at school. And what you guys have actually done is made the education system much more efficient. In fact, you've actually said that the recommended time per day a learner needs to spend is only 3 hours. So perhaps elaborate more on how you've made it more efficient, and how, because you've made it more efficient, students can now actually pursue other activities parallel to their schooling education.
Yes, well, that's a very important point. I think the vision of the school system is in its own light, it has its own history. And we're based currently on the Victorian system, which was established many 100 years ago, because it fulfilled their needs in terms of what they needed learners to come out of school, right? Which is a very biased, one-sided form. And if we look at the actual schooling system, right, and if we look at the different types of learners, right, that we have different types of learners with different cohorts, different cognitive levels, And that presents them in a very difficult light, that they all must be able to climb a tree. So how will a fish be able to climb a tree? If we have to take that example, right, that if we have all animals and we say that the first one to the top is the winner, then how would a fish compare or an elephant compared to a bird? It's quite absurd to actually think that all learners from all backgrounds must have the same amount of time within a classroom, etc. So in this viewpoint, I think we need to understand that learning should be at the pace of the learner, and it's not teaching what's intended, but rather learning is what is the focus of what we need to be doing. And as long as we are facilitating the ongoing process of learning, that's when we are achieving as individuals as well as the collective, because it means that our learners are learning something and they're gaining more skills to actually move forward. With regards to your question in terms of extramurals or additional talents, and this is important because we have 8 hours in the day, whereas perhaps a learner only needs 3 hours, 3.5 hours to go through that content that they cover in 8 hours in a day, and perhaps more in that period of time. So this gives a learner flexibility in their schedule, where if they have a certain interest, whether it be sport, whether it be art, whether it be even Hifdul Quran, where they want to go and memorize the Quran, then they have time to do those activities in the mainstream and learn at the same time at their own pace, as they need to, at their pace. At the same time, in terms of it won't be an entirely self-paced, as we need to have keen eye on the benefit of the learners, and hence there would be certain time frames that learners would be given within they need to achieve certain goals, so that we track their progress and we ensure that there is a progression within the system.
So effectively, a learner that's maybe more academically inclined can do the required work in a shorter period, and he can then free up the time to pursue other things, whereas a learner that maybe is not that academically inclined will have the required amount of time and can use as much time as he needs in that given time to make sure that he understands the concepts.
Exactly, and that's essentially what I mentioned earlier is the purpose, because in a schooling system, we have a problem that learners and teachers are pushed to cover syllabus so that they can assess the learners, so that they can have marks in a report at the end of the semester or at the end of the term. And in our current system, there's a certain amount of assessment tasks that need to be covered per term, and that keeps pressure on the learners and on the parents and on the teachers as well. And to learn in a pressure situation all the time, some may be good at it, but most people won't be able to gain those the right objectives from learning, because they'd be pressured, and so under that pressure, some people just cave in. So in terms of allowing people that affordability of time, that you go through the content at your own pace. If you need to view lessons or attend those lessons more than once, by all means do it, so long the learning process continues.
I think what's also quite exciting about the school is that it's not just focused on the professional studies or numeracy, literacy and other subjects, but it's also including an Islamic component. So maybe just elaborate on the accreditation of the school for both the professional side and then also how you develop your curriculum on the Islamic side.
Okay, so in terms of the secular, what we term as secular or school subjects, we've adopted the Cambridge curriculum. The reason for the Cambridge curriculum is because of the international accreditation that it offers our learners, the international scope. So it grants them the ability, ultimately because we're an online school, we target an international audience, and hence we need to give everyone a fair opportunity at progressing beyond just the secondary school level. Hence, we adopted the Cambridge curriculum, and it gives also the affordability of learners if they are moving around the world, right, wherever they may be, also to gain entrance into other institutions of higher learning. So that's in terms of the our school subjects. Right? The way the actual Cambridge curriculum situates and focuses itself is that at a secondary school level, a lower secondary, when we talk of lower secondary, we're talking of grades 7 to 9, they focus on core subjects, right? And this is quite essential, right, in terms of the core subjects being English, mathematics, and combined sciences. So English, we're looking at literacy. Maths, we're looking at numeracy. And combined sciences, we're looking at your physics, a combination of physics, chemistry, and life sciences. So those are your primary subjects that will give you the edge in terms of foundational principles to move ahead in the IGCSE level. In terms of the Islamiyat, we've looked at, as the saying goes, that when you, why reinvent the wheel if you have one, right? So we're looking at products that are currently available and looking at taking them and making them more appealing and more relevant to the current challenges that we have today, to present a holistic Islamic curriculum that will shape the holistic child rather than just from one side. So we're looking at a holistic viewpoint.
Lots of things excite me about this initiative, but you've given a lot of thought to learning styles and particularly to applying a particular learning style to this academy. So maybe just briefly mention some of the learning styles and teaching methodologies, and then what you guys have actually implemented with your online academy.
Okay, so you get various styles. I mean, if you look at the current school system, you get the chalk and talk, where the teacher goes in the classroom, stands, delivers the lecture, writes some things on the board, and says, right, take it down and do the exercises. So that's your standard approach, right? And then you've got something which is a more learner-centered approach. And we've looked at something that's more learner-centered, because it's not the teacher that matters, and I think I've reiterated this point of learning is our focus, and learning is what's important. So if we're looking at learning, then removing the aspect of so we're looking at a learner-centered approach, and in that case we're looking at a blended learning approach, and we've opted for the flipped learning approach. So that flipped learning approach gives us an opportunity, right? So the flipped learning approach is basically where we give access to the material to learners beforehand, and they have the ability to go through the content of the lesson beforehand, and thereafter within the live session they get a chance to discuss what they've seen. So in a normal school setup, just for the benefit of everyone, in a normal school setup, it's like, instead of giving homework to the child and for the child to go and do homework at home, you'd rather give them content that they look at, and it's like a preparatory lesson. So they prepping themselves for the lesson at home, and when they come into the classroom now, there's a discussion, there's the homework that has now become classwork, and the classwork has become sort of homework. However, this allows, the benefit of this is it allows the learner that pace to pace themselves in the correct way as they require. So when the learner comes in to the classroom, if everyone has gone through the content to the extent that they need to, then they are equipped equally with the opportunity to engage in discussion or classwork at that point in time. So similarly here, you would have pre-recorded lectures which they would have access to, and they can access these recordings and gain the content, as we mentioned, several times if needed, until they reach a point where they are confident with the content and are able to then take on the assessment tasks and present themselves in a live lesson with confidence and an increase in intrinsic motivation towards learning.
Something very interesting that you've developed is a unique Arabic curriculum where you not only teach students classical Arabic to understand the Quran, but you also teach them the modern standard Arabic. So talk to us a bit about the Arabic curriculum that you offer.
Okay, so this Arabic curriculum is actually by one of the senior people, the manager at Qurtuba Online Academy, and he's been involved in Arabic for the past 15 years, teaching Arabic. So over that period of time, he's developed through different curriculums that were on the market, and he's developed his own curriculum, which is now repackaged into a style for high school learners to be able to achieve a classical Arabic as well as a modern standard Arabic. So when we talk of the modern standard Arabic and the classical Arabic, just to give you some insight into the difference between that, then the classical Arabic is what we know as, we'll term in Arabic as Fusha, your classical standard. So in English, if we parallel it with English, then in English it's like your Shakespearean English, right? And then we've got the current lingo and language that is used in terms of your modern standard English as well. So similarly, the modern standard Arabic would be those that are used within the functional context, right? So in the functional environment that the learner interacts with and stays in, all right, whether it's be newspapers, whether engaging with others, then in that functional aspect, the learner is equipped and empowered to be able to engage in that standard of Arabic as well.
So let's say you are already enrolled in a school, or perhaps you're a school leaver. You finish school, but you maybe never had an opportunity to study madrasa, or you want to learn Arabic. Can one access just your Islamic studies component or just your Arabic component and not the rest of the school component?
Yes, certainly we've looked at that, and Islamic studies is something that is the life, the true blood within our veins that continues to propel us to move forward, and that is a component that we have, independent as well as an independent offering, wherein a person can choose just to do the madrasa subjects such as Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, Islamic history, Arabic, and so those are your primary subjects which the person will be able to that has feels they lacking in Islamic education, basic Islamic education. Then they have an opportunity now with Qurtuba Online Academy to apply and learn online at their convenience, such that they can empower themselves without having to feel ashamed because of age or anything of that sort. So it's about broadening the horizons, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
So based on what you just said, that means that, say, if I give you the opposite scenario where maybe a learner is already enrolled at an Islamic studies program, maybe as at a hifz school, would he then just be able to just access the academic component alone without then needing to access the Islamic studies component?
Okay, so if we're looking at the Islamic studies component, then we're looking at grades 7 to 9, right? So if a hifz learner is maybe beyond the point of having studied those Islamic subjects and just wants to pursue school, then that is something that we are definitely looking into to provide for those that are that have been through that Islamic curriculum. However, being an Islamic institute, then Islamic ethos is our primary source it's our primary focus, all right, together with integrating Islamic concepts within our secular subjects, right? And hence, if a learner comes in within grade 7 to 9 to the school, then they would be necessary for them to do the Islamic subjects as well as the Cambridge curriculum. The only exception there would be if we have a non-Muslim learner that wants to study with Qurtuba Online Academy, then there may be a discretionary decision from the directors to allow that learner to just continue with the Cambridge curriculum, isolated from the Islamic studies curriculum. However, embracing the ethos within the Cambridge curriculum that has been that sports the Islamic viewpoints as well.
I just want to ask you about the role of the parents. Obviously, in a standard brick and mortar school, parents would drop the kid off at the school. The school would sort of babysit the child for the day, and the parent would pick them up at the end of the day. And obviously, in between the time, they can either go to work or manage whatever affairs they're doing. So, if somebody would opt for online schooling, what role would parents be required to play to ensure that their child stays on track? And how would your academy interact with the parents?
Okay, so in terms of parental involvement, I think the role of the parent cannot be emphasized enough in terms of the role of the parent within the upbringing of the child. And hence it is primarily the parent's duty to educate the child. So within an online institute, right, where we have various, where we have now a learner would be at home, right, and looking and studying over the computer, using the laptop or computer or tablet or cellular phone, there would be a need for the parent to have that same discretionary role and advisory role and supportive role in terms of supporting what the learner is actually studying. And having that viewpoint. So at Qurtuba Online Academy, we value the parent. And how we value the parent is by creating a certain portal from which the parent will be able to monitor the child's progress. And through that, they can monitor the grading of the learner, they can monitor the progress of the learner, and that's something that we hold dearly. Nevertheless, to say this is that just a point on this related to your question. I think if we think of learners who have become accustomed to being babied at schools, where they have everything on the plate, right? So there's spoon feeding happening, and we need to create that culture within us, where there's a culture of responsibility and accountability. So as a learner, if the learner is not given the opportunity to own the experience of learning, then they will never do it. But if a learner is given that opportunity, then the learner will relish that opportunity, but needs to be guided and mentored in doing it the correct way. And that's essentially what can happen with an online institute like Qurtuba Online Academy. Additionally, negative influences can also be removed quite easily because of the program that we have put in place.
I want to talk a bit about Moulana Bakr, and you've obviously done a lot of studying in your life, and you're quite passionate about this project and on providing a unique education experience. So tell us more about yourself, your life, what you've done, what drives you to want to make the impact that you're making with this online academy.
Okay, so I did my schooling. I went to various schools. I did my schooling at secondary level. I completed my matric, and then I went to study the Alim course at the Jamia al-Ulum al-Islamiyya, which is based in Johannesburg, Fordsburg, Johannesburg. Whilst I was there, I commenced my studies through UNISA, the University of South Africa, in Bachelor of Accounting Science, which I then changed to a Bachelor of Education, feeling the calling for education and teaching. And after I completed my Bachelor of Education, then I went on to a HOD course, a Head of Department course, so leading a phase or area where I basically it was HOD training through the Matthew Goniwe School for Leadership and Governance. And then the following year, I completed a postgraduate diploma in educational management and leadership. And currently I'm doing my master's in education in information and communication technology, which has empowered me. It's an online course through the University of Johannesburg, and one that is really unlocking and giving learnership back. It's promoting the ownership of learning belongs to the learner, not to anyone else. It must be a unique learning experience with authentic learning and authentic assessment. And we hope that through my learning with through this master's degree, I can bring in some sort of experience or personal experience to try and shape better our experience with Qurtuba Online Academy. Of course, not forgetting our directors and my manager as well, who bring in a lot of experience in the field of education as well.
Do you feel that one of the main components why learners don't succeed is that they're not taking ownership of their learning? I like the statement that you say that the onus of learnership belongs to the learner.
I think yes, we can say yes and no. I think learners are in that. We live in a digital world, and I made mention of this previously. And living in a digital world where learners are exposed to this audio and visual learning, and you have things like the Khan Academy and those type of platforms that are available, then learners feel it more appealing to learn by watching a video clip of that thing, where they can see visuals of the concept rather than reading a text explaining them. So at the same time, we need to look at these different cohorts of learners. So we have learners that are more will learn more through audio. Some will learn better through reading. Some will learn better through visual, and we need to cater for those. Yes. So by ownership of the learner's experience, we're talking about giving the learner that opportunity to choose what is his opportunity, or what is his forte in terms of learning. How does he learn best? And own then that experience, because that will excite him. And once a learner is excited about education, then it excites me, because then he'll be willing to move ahead and progress and achieve the heights in life.
Moulana, you've really excited me. Actually, I want to go back to school now so I can do the Qurtuba Online Academy, because I hated school. And I feel if I had the Qurtuba Online Academy, it would have solved all of my challenges. So I want to sign up for your academy. What is the cost, and how do I go about signing up?
Okay, so in terms of the cost, we've looked at right. So there's an amount of 1,450 rand per month, which is payable over 10 months. Right, that's the Cambridge and Islamic Studies. Right, and there's a registration fee that's payable on registration as well. So for total for the year, we're only looking at 15,000 rand, and that's with recorded lectures, with live support, live sessions, with support, with assessment, and with an internationally recognized Cambridge curriculum. I think it's a good deal.
I think it's a fantastic deal. I want to conclude with these two questions. Firstly, what is success to you? And secondly, what advice do you have for youth?
I think ultimately, as Muslims that imbibe the Constitution is the Quran, and our life ought to be on the way of our beloved Master Mohamed sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then that is what success is, if we can achieve in terms of ultimately passing through this life and moving on to the next, and on the day of judgment we meet Allah and Allah is pleased with us. So that's ultimate success. Within a context of the world, I think the most important thing that we find today is there's a lot of hatred amongst human beings for each other. And I think if we look at the history of Islam, then the most pride or the most victorious and illustrious periods of Islam had a period where everyone wished well for each other. And I think that's something that we need to look at, is that how can we look at my brother or my sister and see how I can enhance their experience in this world, rather than try and obliterate or try and shun them in terms of what they're doing, and have jealousy towards them. So it's about empowering others, and that's what grows us as individuals. If we empower others, that grows us ultimately. So it's about having a stance of wishing well for each other, and that's important. I think that goes a long way, along with a positive mindset and being an optimist and finding the positive in every situation, rather than being negative and condemning whatever we find in front of us. In terms of the youth indeed, our future leaders, and I wouldn't say future leaders, but the leaders of today, as they have to take up the cudgels of the digital world, which perhaps older generations may not be able to, due to for the lack of a better word, illiteracy in that field. And it's the youth that need to take up this and own their learning experience and guide themselves to a way that they can enhance their learning and study hard and try and excel. Indeed, if we look at in mathematics, in science, who are the inventors of all of these? They were Muslim people. So Islam has always promoted excellence in all fields. And this is something that we as youth need to look at, is that we need to strive for excellence in whatever we're doing. The ultimate thing is for us to become good Muslims in this world and become specialists in our field within an Islamic context, as well as a modern world context in terms of being a specialist. So how we can show the way of Islam and Sahaba radiallahu anhum and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, such that we can attain that eternal salvation.
Jazakallah khair, Moulana. We really appreciate the time, and I really enjoyed seeing this whole, learning about this initiative, but also seeing the broader Qurtuba campus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant your work to grow from strength to strength.
I mean, Jazakallah khairan for having us, and we hope you come along again, inshallah.
It's a pleasure.